In this video, I'm going to show you how to create invoices. There are a few ways to do this. Firstly, from the front dashboard, you've got the option at the top of the page just to click the Create Invoice button, and that will take you through to the invoicing module. The second way is if you go to a customer record on the left hand side, and we just drill into a customer record, we'll see there is an option to create an invoice at the top of the screen. Lastly, if we go to the Invoices module on the left hand side, you'll see there is an option at the top just to create a new invoice. So to create an invoice, all we need to do is just click the Create button. That will bring through the invoice with the next sequential number. So we can see in our invoice list we had 4 invoices already, so this is going to be invoice number 5. We can then continue to choose the customer who we want to raise this invoice for, and if the customer isn't in your list already, you can just hit the plus sign and you can quickly add in a new customer record. Once you've chosen the customer you want to add an invoice in for, you will see that it will bring through their address details directly from their customer record. We can see the issue date and the due date, and if I click into this we can then change these dates. So I'm just going to say this was generated on the 12th of January, and we can see the due date has changed to fit in with the 28-day payment terms that I have with my customers. All we then need to do is just click Add Line Item, and then it will default to sales. We can choose the quantity, so this is just going to be 1, and then I can just say this is just going to be work carried out. So we can just type in whatever we've done on the invoice, and then you can either type in the net rate, and that will calculate the VAT at 20%, and we can see the gross value is £360 including VAT. If you know the total value, you can just enter the gross value. So if I just enter £500, it will calculate the 20% VAT, and it will calculate the net rate for you, and we can see the total down at the bottom here. If there's additional lines that you want to add, all you do is add new line, and I'm going to add another line in here, and then we can choose where we want to post these to. So I've actually got labour and materials in here, so I can break out my labour and materials for my reporting, and we can see that my labour is pre-filled as £600 a day, and I can, if I just put 2 in the quantity, it now calculates 2 days worth for me. And I can still free type into here, so I'm just going to put 2 days labour, and in my materials line here I'm just going to put £1,000 worth of materials, and it's calculated all the VAT for me. You can move these lines around depending on how you want your invoice to be laid out, and you can also add in a comment, and you can just free type information into here of anything you want your customers to know. Once you've done that, all you need to do is just click Save in the top right hand side of the screen, and that invoice has now been saved in the system. If you go to the Invoices module now on the left hand side, you will see that that invoice number 5 is now listed, and in the invoice screen we can see the date it was created, the due date, the value, and the status of that invoice is currently unpaid. If we click into that invoice, there's some options at the top of the screen. Firstly, we have an option to edit, so if you ever need to amend an invoice, just click the edit button, and now we can continue to make any changes we want. I'm just going to take out that comment line and then just press save, and now that new version of the invoice is saved in the system. If you do a lot of repeat work and similar invoices, we've also given you a copy button at the top of the screen. So if you click on the copy button, you'll have the option to copy that across to a new invoice. So just copy that to a new invoice, and we can see it's copied all of those details, and we're now on invoice number 6, and I can just say it's for a different customer, hit save, and that's now created invoice number 6 with the same information on. There's options at the bottom of the page, so we can print an email, so I can either print it out to a PDF, or if you click on email, it will bring up the internal email editor, and as long as you've got an email address for them, it will pre-fill that. The subject is the invoice from Perfect Plumbing, which is my business, and we can see the customer gets a message from me saying that the invoice has been attached. If we click on that PDF, we can see what my invoice looks like, and we can see it's got my company logo on there, and it's got all of the details that we keyed into the invoice. It's got my BACS information, and the total value and VAT are all stored within here. We can also see that we got a Pay Now button, so if the client wanted to make an online payment with a debit or credit card, they could just tick that box and it will take them straight through to PayPal. Alternatively, if you wanted to use our card payment functionality, you do have the option just to click on the card payment option on the invoice and just take the card details over the phone. The other options, we could just add a manual payment. So if we click add payment, I can either type in a part payment or a customer deposit against here, or if I just left the full value in, I can choose the bank account that payment's gone into, the payment method, and then just hit save, and that invoice will now be marked as paid. We can now see at the bottom of the screen the payment is there, and we can see the payment has gone into my current account, and you can see the date and the value for that payment. Once you've made a payment, you'll see you've got the option to do a refund if you need to, and if you hit on the refund button, you could refund the payment, create a credit note, or write off as bad debt if needed. And if we now go through to the invoice screen, we can see that invoice number 6 has been marked as paid. And also, if we go through to the customers module now on the left hand side, if we scroll down to our customer list on here, we can see that our value has changed for our customers. So if I click onto here, we can go and see any invoice that's marked as paid is just marked as paid against here, and you can see the total that they've been invoiced. If we go through to the bank module on the left hand side, we can now see that our current account has got a balance of 3,140, and if I view and add the transactions, we can see the payment that went into the bank against the invoice is all listed in here, and if you actually click into that from the bank screen, it will take you straight through to the invoice and you can see all the details in there. And to repeat that process, just go to the invoice screen on the left and just click the create button at the top of the screen. And that's how easy it is just to create and manage invoices in Adbooks.